Okay. We're here with my teammate. It's my teammate, Jason Braille.
Yes,
This is a
sir.
Sail and Shoe teammate here.
Yes, sir. Yes,
What a
sir.
pleasure! What a pleasure to have you. He's also involved with 285 Lacrosse. And we want to hear a lot about this. We got a lot to dig in. Obviously, it was a big week in Lacrosse with the opening weekend. But Jason, maybe you could tell us a little bit about. Well, first of all, let's go back. Your lacrosse pedigree. You're an upstate guy.
Yes, sir.
How,
God's
how do you
country.
first how do you first get involved with lacrosse? Is it just automatic in Canandaigua that you have to be born with a stick, or?
It got that way, wasn't it? Well, first of all, I want to say what an honor it is to be on with you guys on this podcast. You to be a small part in your adventures the past couple of years at Lake Placid, and our the evenings we shared together, and the times are just awesome. And it's really cool to be on this. But I don't have near the pedigree you guys do. It's honored to be on here. Honored to be on here with you. But I grew up in Canandaigua, New York, and like a lot of New York towns, a little blue collar. You know, um, we play sports are really important. Back in the time, you could still play multiple sports. Played football, basketball, and lacrosse. But in my hometown, it's what you do. You play lacrosse. Even though my dad was a high school baseball coach, that caused a little controversy. But um,
I bet.
it just worked out great. And I started, the reason actually, I got my first stick in like third grade. We didn't have the youth leagues like they do now. We didn't start playing that young. I'm sure you guys might have in Long Island, but we really didn't start playing till like sixth and seventh grade out where I grew up in the Finger Lakes. And, there's a guy named Dan Ducar who lived two doors down from me on Buffalo Street in Canandaigua. And he ended up being like one of the first guys to go to college for lacrosse from Canandaigua. He played at Washington College, went there in 1983. He gave me my first stick. He babysat me and stuff too, and it just kind of went from there. And then we just started. It's I just felt like I was like a lot of people, a little too scatterbrained or ADHD or whatever for baseball.
Okay.
So I just always wanted a little more. So I was big into basketball, played football, and just when you're looking at at our sport at a young age, you're like, man, this is kind of cool. I get to wear a helmet and shoulder pads and gloves and run up and down the field and bang each other a little bit and take this stick and occasionally smack someone in the head with it. And that was appealing to me. So it just was kind of cool. We had a middle school team, and then we played in high school, and I had a great coach in high school, Johnny Johnson, just a fabulous coach. Like all the New York school teachers, coaches, he coached in multiple sports. I had him in football, and I actually knew my dad was an eighth grade math teacher, and I knew him since I was 2, and it was kind of like being coached by family. And my buddies Sean Marshall and Sean Quinn. We started playing
Yeah.
at the same time. We were our defense for like 6 years in our age group. And it
Wow.
just was awesome. And I honestly did for a while think I was going to go play some basketball at Syracuse alongside Derek Coleman, but I have some limitations that prevented me from Division I basketball. But it became pretty clear that lacrosse was my path to a good school. And it just was pretty. I was pretty fortunate. I made the 1987 Empire State Games. Which I was really fortunate that we were the first Western New York team to play Long Island. We
Okay.
still lost to Long Island, Vinny, so it's okay. We lost to Darren Lowe and
Oh,
that
well.
crew 7-4, but we did
Oh,
beat
that's a good
Central. That was
team.
the first time ever. Yeah, but we had a lot
Wow,
of good
beat
guys on
Central.
it. I mean,
Wow.
Sean and I were on that team, and John Winship, Sean McGowan, Syracuse guys, Joe Lando, and Dave Von Reedy, Cornell guys, and just a long little. I still have a picture of that team in my other office, but that was probably one of the greatest experiences of my life. The old New York Empire State Games, when I think we went to like Syracuse for like a week or two or whatever and stayed in the dorms, and it was just an amazing experience.
That'd be great. Who
Yeah,
coached
we
you?
practiced for like a month. What was that?
Who coached
What
you?
was that, Vin? My high school coach. I think that's why I made the team. Johnny Johnson. But Johnny Johnson and Ed Mulhern are my high school coaches, But we had a. It's just still an amazing memory at Empires. I wish they still had it the way they did, because it was like being in the Olympics, for a small town kid to go there, and you'd go watch all the other sports, and we played at Coyne Field. I swear we had 4,000 or 5,000 at the Saturday night game against Central. when we played our semifinal game. Yeah, I had 3 penalties, but it was kind of funny. There were 10 penalties in that game, and 9 of them came from the 3 Canandaigua defensemen.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah, but it was a good experience. And I went to Delaware. I kind of chose Delaware. I was a little bit a late bloomer. I'm 6'4". I was really skinny, not that strong then. I was kind of a tweener, whether I was a close defenseman or an LSM. So, but I ended up being a little bit of a late bloomer, and if I went to a year of prep school like kids do now, that would have done well. But I mean, we wouldn't have done that. Who even knew that? I didn't know even that happened back then. I don't know about you guys.
So here's a fun story for you, Jason. You probably didn't even know this. We could have almost been teammates.
Really?
Because I was really only considering, actually like 3 schools, and Delaware was definitely one of them.
Oh my God, it would have been awesome if you joined us.
So and listen to this story. So when I'm a senior, Coach Schillinglaw invites me down to come. And, I was a little shy, I'm like, what am I going to do down there, And he could sense that. And he was like, listen, if you want to, come with a friend and bring a friend along. So I called my dear friend, who's also a lacrosse player. He played at Port Washington High School. I was at St. Mary's. And I said, come on, can you come with me we'll go down and see Delaware. No, it was Phil Cifarelli.
Sif, I love Sif.
So we end up going down. We go on the train. And Coach Schillinglaw picks us up, dumps us off on many of the older guys. We have a great time. He finds out Phil's whole resume. He recruits Phil. Phil ends up going. That's how Phil ended up at Delaware.
He wasn't really recruiting you?
He was recruiting me, but he wasn't really recruiting Phil. But then once I brought Phil down, he started recruiting Phil, and Phil ended up there. And
I saw Phil 2 years ago.
And then what's really fun, you mentioned prep schools, because then I took a year off after that.
Yeah.
So I didn't go to school for a year. I graduated in '86. I did my prep school year on the Port Washington ice truck with Vinny.
Right.
So
is there a story there? Is there a story there, Stephen?
We just we just worked at the ice house, but then that year when it's winter and it's not the ice season, you're splitting wood. So I'm spending the whole year splitting wood, delivering wood, firewood to houses, and that was my prep school year, which, by the way, was a very important year in my life. I played club. I got to play with Long Island. We won the club championship with Long Island that year. Played with many of the greats, Norman Engelke, Vinny, Matt Crowley, Randy Natoli, John DiTomaso, Larry Quinn. Forget it. The list goes on.
Unbelievable.
So, you're playing with those guys, and the experience. Smalley was even on the team.
Oh, I want video. I want video.
The only video you'll get is Tommy Postel, the coach who ended up being my coach at Post, burning a hole through Smalley's jacket because Smalley says he threw the cigarette down and it bounced up and burned his down coat that he had on in the winter.
That's hilarious.
But Delaware was definitely, I would say, when it came down to it, a couple other, Penn State was another one that I was talking to Coach Thiel, but it really, when it was coming down to it, it was whether I was going to go away, I would go to Delaware. But I chose to stay home and stay closer to home. And obviously, being around Postel with Long Island, that was a no-brainer. I just loved them to death.
So we played against each other a few times then, because we played you guys every year.
Yeah, I think you guys beat us. I think you beat us twice, and we beat you once, I think. I'm pretty sure. You definitely beat.
Yeah, I remember we played you at our place freshman year. We went to your place sophomore year. I was hurt. I had a broken hand from a dumb off-field incident that may or may not have occurred. And then,
I think we were 2-2. Like in my years, we won when I was a freshman. We lost when down there as a sophomore. We lost as a junior, but then we won down at Delaware when I was a senior. So.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, it's. But no, they always had a great team. They did start to have a port flavor with Stans. When
Stans was awesome.
He had a great career down there. I think he might have, as a midfield scorer, might have ended up like one of the top scorers as a midfielder in Delaware history, which is saying a lot because they had a lot of great midfielders. You had Butch Marino there. You had other guys that were great.
Randy Powers. No, Randy Powers was attack.
Right.
But Thomas was probably one of the best guys I played with, period. Because he and I were the same age, and he just had an intensity about him. Like, you could get the ball out of his stick, but you weren't getting it before he got it. I mean, he just had an intensity. Like, he would literally, he just had, not that he would, but you'd had this feeling that Thomas would slit somebody's throat to get the ball,
right.
And he's just an incredible competitor. He ended up being a second-team All-American our senior year.
Yeah, I mean, he's strong, for a smaller guy, strong as an ox and fast as anything. So
and tough as nails.
Tough as anything is right. So that's what's beautiful about lacrosse, where all sizes doesn't matter. You fit your if you have the tenacity and you have the skill set, you can figure out a game that works for you, and being small is not a disadvantage. In fact, when bigger guys guard you, it's harder to guard smaller guys. You can't get your hands on them good. You don't get great leverage, so a lot of times those smaller guys are tricky, to guard.
So start watching our games in Lake Placid. When I go on the field and make an assessment of the three attackmen, and I see a really little one, I'm going the other direction.
Right.
Because that's not a good matchup for me. I'm 6'4". That is not a good matchup for me.
Exactly.
I was all who's the great attack when we play all the time? John. God, I forget his name. I can't. In Lake Placid. Yeah.
For which team?
We played against him much. John, I forget his name, but anyways, he's just an incredible player. Little lefty, played at Union.
Oh, I know you're talking about Keller.
Yeah, Keller. He's amazing. He's amazing, right? And it's like 3 years ago, I did an amazing job on him. Yeah. I got the ball down there twice, but both times he got the ball before I even knew where it was and dunked it in the goal. So it didn't matter what I did. I'm like, okay, I can't deal with this anymore. Someone else cover him. I put Jerry Byrne on.
He's a handful. He's definitely a handful because he's one of those guys. He's not going to futz around. He's going at you. You might do something to him, but he's diving. He's throwing his body, which is crazy at an older age that he does that, because I'm like, I don't even want to get touched.
He had 2 goals on me, and I was playing great defense and got the ball on the ground both times. I'm like, I'm out. I'm too old for this stuff. Yeah. Somebody else, please. But as far as college, though, Towson was an option for me. Hobart, I lived right near Hobart. If I stayed home and did that, Hobart was a serious consideration. Literally, I was on 20 minutes from Hobart, and my high school program, we went to everything Hobart. We were required to go to their home games, actually. That was it. And then we'd come back and practice during the week. And Dave Urich and Mark Van Harsdale were really active in our high school program. So thought about that, and had it, and then, also was recruited by the academies pretty hard. And I have a funny story about Brown, though. I was recruited very hard by Brown, but then Coach Starja called me, and we were talking. I was very interested. I didn't know much about it, though, but I said, Coach, I'm not sure, because I didn't grow up with a lot of money. I'm not sure if I can pay for it or even get in. He goes, well, good luck out there, son. I'll see you around. That's like end of call right there. Because I was, we all think we're a little better. If you think back, we all think we were a little smarter than we were, a little stronger, a little better athlete, a little better with the ladies. But I ended up right where I belonged at Delaware, and honestly, probably still needed lacrosse to get me in there. But it was a great experience. I was on campus 20 minutes, and I just turned to Shills. Is this where I want to go? It's exactly what I had idealized as the type of school I wanted to go to. And it was a great experience. Now, we weren't very good when I was there, quite honestly. We had a couple years we were just okay, but it was a great experience, and I still, I love the school, and I'm still trying to be active in the program. But I was it worked out very well for me there.
So let's talk a little bit about your involvement. How do you end up in Atlanta, and what sets the stage for this 285 lacrosse and ultimately the Invitational? How does that get set up?
So, well, first of all, I ended up in Atlanta because I had an uncle who lived here. I had some family down here, right? And I didn't want to go back to Western New York. It was 1992 when I graduated, and I didn't, I would have probably stayed around Philadelphia area with buddies, but I figured I just wanted to do something different. So my uncle, I came down here a couple times in college, and visited my uncle, and just kind of liked it. Atlanta was it was a lot smaller than it is now. Now it's nuts, but it was just a lot of fun, right? And just something different. Just came down after college, and I just had been here a bunch and had family here and just liked it. I liked it a lot. And then about a year later, I met this a very southern woman who turned out to be my wife, and we got married a few years later. And the day before we got married, she came in. It was like 5 o'clock. We're at the hotel where everybody's staying, and she's like, "This is like 3 years after I moved down there," and she's like, "I need to talk to you," and I'm like, "Oh, I'm getting dumped." Right? I thought this was happening because I'm way over my skis with my wife, like way over my skis, kind of like Smallsy, But but they, and he, and then she goes, "I need you to promise me you're never going to move me up north." I'm like, "Done. That's it. Done. Easy." I was like, "Woo, this is great." So I made that promise, and then she's really tight with her family and stuff. And once you get used to the weather and everything down here, it's just a really great place to be. Like I love being in Long Island or New York in the summer, but honestly, this time of year I prefer it here.
Yeah.
But so I just was down here, and then we had kids and stuff, and then when you got like 5 and 6, I'm like, "Oh my God, what am I going to do for lacrosse?" For the kids, because my kids are playing lacrosse, right? As you can see those sticks up there, it's from some of my Delaware teammates. Each one of them has the insignia of each one of my kids, when they sent their birthday, right? So, they're in the sport. That's what we do. Mm-hmm. And then, I just got involved, found a youth league and got involved with some other guys from New York that are all on my club team, Southern Empire down here, Mike DiMaria, Joey and Bobby Lacerdo, mainly Syracuse guys and stuff, Jason Alberici, Joe's brother. And we just all started hanging out and playing a little bit. We had a club team, going. We still play on down here. It's getting hard for me though. It's 35 and up, so it's a little harder. So we just started playing. But you get into the part like where my kid's going to play, right? So we end up getting involved in youth leagues, and a bunch of us got together. And there's a lot of guys, like 30 to 40 guys like me, who all played in college and moved down here for work or family or whatever. And we just all started working together, and we started a couple youth leagues. I was fortunate where I lived. You guys know Richie Wayman from Ward Melville and Navy, little older than us, but he's So Richie and I coached. We were in the same area. We knew each other through work. We started a middle school program that was gonna. Our kids were much younger, just basically for our kids to have to play. And then it morphed into a high school, Lambert High School, and Rich is still coaching there. They're doing great. I was there from like 2010 to 2015, and I started the youth league there and stuff. And we just got a lot of kids playing lacrosse, and in our part of Atlanta that was great. But there was other parts of Atlanta where guys were doing the same thing. And then you end up being a high school coach down here, even if you have. As a matter of fact, I was trying to explain to Phil Cifarelli 2 years ago at the UMass Rutgers game. My son played for UMass. He's like, "How do you have time to be a coach?" I'm like, "You just have to, right? You just figure it out, because either here, there's not teachers who coach here. You're either going to be in the stands mad that your kid's got a coach that's not suitable, or you're going to have to do it." So what happened was, I'm technically in sales, so I have a flexible schedule, but there were probably 30 guys like me, just an endless amount of guys that came down here and just did the same thing because their kids were coached. So the lacrosse around here actually became a lot better than you think it would be. And then you got guys like Liam Banks who moved down here and started LB3, and we all coach club and everything together. And there's always been a really good camaraderie here amongst former players as far as developing the game, right? So that's kind of what we've always all been about, like everybody for the most part. It's changed a little bit with the new club influence and stuff with the younger guys. We can talk about that forever, but there's always been a core belief here in Atlanta that we got to get more kids playing the sport. And I remember the first practice I ever coached 20 years ago, we had to sneak onto a baseball field. We're throwing a goal over the 12-foot fence or whatever, with Rich Wayman and my buddy Rick Lewis, who played at Rutgers, and we just started from there. And then the reason this all started at 285 lacrosse, there's been a few Division I games in Atlanta before that have really done a really good job of promoting the sport. And one of them was in 2013 when UMass came down to play North Carolina, and they beat them. They had Will Manny and Kyle Smith and all those guys, and they beat them pretty good. And I'm like, that's when I started thinking about UMass for my son. It was a good fit. My son's kind of gritty, and that's how we are. And it just always kept that in the back of my mind. So when my son went to UMass, I started talking about Greg. I said, "How about you guys play a game in Atlanta again?" He goes, "Oh, we'd love that. That'd be great." So we, honestly, it took a couple years to put it together, and we just started it with, really, I just didn't want to get out playing for one weekend, being honest. I just wanted to have one weekend in Georgia where our family could come and friends, and it turned into a great experience. We had Army's got a really big presence here in Atlanta. They probably recruit Atlanta the most of anybody. They probably have 5 kids on their roster right now, and some of the really good ones too. So they wanted to come down, and we just were able to move that game down here, and it went really well. So we're like, it was originally intended to be a one and done, right? We had it at a small soccer stadium. We had about 4,000 people there. It was great. It was a really good experience, but
Wow.
it was never intended to make any money or anything. But we had some charity partners. We wanted to donate some money. We really couldn't that year because of the startup cost, but then we came up with the idea, like, let's do this. And all the guys involved in this with me are Paul Thomas. Do you know Paul?
Yeah.
Paul's great. Paul handles our community stuff. Mike DiMaria, Eric Sanders. DiMaria was a great Hobart guy.
Yeah.
Eric plays at Lake Placid for like 16 teams, and like everybody, like you, and and then I remember at Lake Placid, we're always like, are we gonna have Steve this game or not? We don't know, but because we really need Steve. None if we can get Vinny to play again, but
Yeah.
but it just kind of worked out that we had a lot of guys, so we just came up with this idea. We wanted to do it again. I thought it was kind of fun running the games. It's not. I'm kind of burned out of coaching a little bit, and don't want to do that anymore. But it's just really for me. I want people to see our sport on the best level possible, right? The highest level. Like sports are huge here, but I have this. We want to. I always say we want to shoot for like an SEC level production, right? To do it really well. When there's some games that have been here at high schools and stuff before that I thought were just okay, that made it look like just a glorified high school game. So we did a really good job with it our first year, and then we turns out because of our relationship with Tills and everything else, we end up Notre Dame and Maryland want to play here last year. So we kind of reformed as a company, as a 501c3. So we're a totally nonprofit organization. No one makes any money off this at all. And we had a great experience last year. We have 3 partner charities: the Pediatric Cancer Research Foundation, the Shootout for Soldiers art organization, which is great for lacrosse. They do it in my hometown. I have an event in my hometown in New York, so I love them. And then it's SaveAWarrior.org, which prevent veteran suicide. Last year, we donated $30,000 to those 3 charities and raised $41,000 for pediatric cancer.
Wow.
So we had to, we were fortunate last year to have it at Georgia Tech. So we really elevated our sport because of the venue,
Right.
and then it just was great. We had 10,137 people at that game in Atlanta. It was awesome. Honestly, we'll never do better than that. But it's turned into a lot of people, want to help and get part of it. And we probably got like 30 volunteers now that help pull these games off because it's a lot harder than you think to do. But it's been really a lot of fun. Our whole goal is only to grow the game of lacrosse here.
So that's an interesting, I can tell you an interesting story going way back. I don't even know if Vinny knows this story. So, but he knows my dear friend Eugene Haraxum
Yeah.
moved to Atlanta many, many moons ago, right after college, and he was gone, and he was a cop down in Atlanta, and he would ask us to come down, and Phil and I went down to Atlanta because they were having a tournament somewhere. And this is probably mid 90s. And so we go to the tournament, and whoever was the tournament director at the time, he took us around. I asked him to take him. We're driving around a little bit. We got a ride with him or something. And I started asking him about the high schools. I started asking him, how's it going with the growth of the game? And he's like, little stagnant. And I said, well, why is that? He says, well, you're in baseball country down here. He goes, they put lacrosse in a few of the schools, and all of the best athletes all of a sudden were giving up baseball and wanted to play lacrosse, and the baseball powers were like, we can't have this lacrosse here because all the best players are, So I always felt like there's going to be a challenge there, but as I saw Liam Banks and others get involved. Z was down there for many years developing people. John Zilberti, the great John Zilberti, and so now you knew they turned the corner. Now people were really starting to see promise, and then you started seeing the various college players that hailed from the Atlanta area. So I'm sure that story is pretty much in a lot of places resistance because. They want to try to protect the other sports, but the reality is the game is just too good. Once kids get that stick in their hand, it's addictive, and it's so nice to see events like the events that you've been putting on. And, this year, as we should say, it's this year down the Atlanta Invitational's February 21st.
Yes, sir.
And it's going to be Army versus Michigan, which is a tremendous game. So, how do you come up with deciding what the game should be? Like, how do you decide, and how long in advance do you know that?
So that's actually the hardest thing to do.
By the way,
Because at first we're like,
you got two other women's games too, right?
yep. And this is the first year we've been able to coordinate women's games too. We actually have Boston College versus Michigan, which is a top 5 matchup, and then Florida State versus Army West Point. So one of our board members, Eric Sanders' daughter, is on Florida State. So we really worked hard to get them here, and we actually had to rearrange our schedule to get. And so BC said, "Well, yeah, we'll cancel this game, but we need to be part of your event." So we're really fortunate to have those, but we just hadn't worked out. It's funny that we've only had men's games for the previous 2 years because the scheduling is they do the scheduling completely different. The women do it like a year and a half, 2 years ahead of time. Believe it or not, the men are like 6 to 8 months. The men are like 6 to 8 months. Like, it's so it's a little different. So obviously I'm more involved in the men's game. So that when we had the UMass Army game 3 years ago, we did that, and it ended up morphing into 2 games because North Carolina and Mercer were playing. Mercer isn't, the only Division I program in Georgia, but they're in Macon, which is an hour and a half south of Atlanta. And Joe Bresci actually called me. He's like, "I don't want to go to Macon. Can we just play with you?"
So do you do it? So it's less of, you're not really making the matchup, but you're taking the matchup basically. So
yeah,
they're set to play at some point, and then you're able to get them to agree to the neutral site.
Yeah,
is that more what happens?
Yeah, we'll find like the figurehead games always is with us right now is the men's game because it's always going to be slightly more attended. But we'll find a game that's on the schedule and flip it. Now this one came about because 2 years ago Joe Alberici had a really positive experience. He texted me on Monday morning that we want to come back in 2 years to do that. Okay. That was like the day after. He said, "It's a great experience. Let's do this. Great. We love it." So we've always had Army, but we had to finagle another team, right? So this weekend on their schedule was open. It turned out it was Michigan. Now Kevin Connery in Michigan came down here and played Yale in 2019, which was cool, positive experience. So they wanted to come, and we had a lot of good buzz from last year though too. We were talking to a number of people, but the games just didn't work out, timing wise. But basically, we have to get a game on the schedule and flip it and have them come to Atlanta. Which since we have most of our games in February. This game would be played in West Point on February 21st or here. So that's usually a pretty easy decision.
Yeah.
Plus, the only other thing is we have to pay for their travel costs. So we pay for the teams to come down here, which gets challenging. But usually when we offer that up, they're like, sure, So it's worked out.
I would imagine that.
Jason, let me ask you, why 285? Is that the zip code or area code? What is 285?
So 285 is the loop around Atlanta. It's an interstate, right?
Okay.
So when we were coming up with a name that wanted to encompass Atlanta, like the area code 404 has been done a million times, right? So I just came up. 285 is literally the circle around Atlanta. It's called the perimeter.
Okay.
And so I just grabbed onto that. Like the logo was easy to make because it just copied the interstate sign, and our tagline is lacrosse around Atlanta. So we're just trying to do everything we can to grow lacrosse around Atlanta. And, this year it didn't work out to go back to Georgia Tech. And Georgia Tech was a fantastic partner. But they got a new athletic director, and it just was too much confusion over the summer. It was total, chaos. So we're fortunate to go to Morehouse College, which is an HBCU, a very historic HBCU. It's where Martin Luther King went to college. All sorts of famous people, a really big part of Atlanta. And, we felt they have a perfect stadium. It's 10,000 seats, brand new turf, great video board, all this stuff. But they want to start a lacrosse program. So we started talking with them, and we're going to help them start a lacrosse program. They're a Division II school, but we're really excited about it because this is truly growing the game, right? So we're actually going to help them kind of start a program. It's a historic Atlanta school. It's part of the Atlanta University Center, which is one of 4 it's 4 HBCUs in Atlanta. They're all like right next to each other. It's a really cool thing. And we're going to do that. And they've been a fantastic partner, and we got all sorts of cool stuff planned. And we're just really excited to go there this year. It's kind of where we belong. I was still fighting for Georgia Tech, and we probably could have had it. But when this opportunity came about, it we're about growing the sport. And our board, we had a board meeting on it, and we're like, let's do it. So, we got USA Lacrosse coming down to help with this initiative, and we're doing clinics for local schools and boys and girls clubs, and we're just kind of doing everything we can to grow the game in this part of Atlanta.
So let's talk about let's talk about the elephant in the room, because the biggest topic of week 1 of college lacrosse this year is the earliest start ever for college lacrosse, and probably the most cancellations of a first week of college lacrosse at the same time. So there's a buzz, going through the lacrosse community about starting these college season so early. And do you feel like there's a window of an opportunity, whether it's Atlanta and maybe some other, I'm sure Florida's thinking about it, and maybe Texas is thinking about it, where the South sort of rises again and says, we're going to take over this sport as it relates to February if teams can coordinate and make travel details where they know games will go off rather than potentially be canceled. Is this a potential opportunity?
Oh, this is a huge opportunity, and we're going to pursue it. We're doing a second game this year too, with Jacksonville and High Point in South Georgia, Georgia Southern University, the week after. So we're getting into multiple games this year, but I can see that definitely happening next year because, it's just too early to play lacrosse. I know the coaches don't want to play more than one game a week anymore, but we did it, and I liked it. Honestly, I hated having 5 days of practice.
Right, practice.
Yeah, playing a game on a Wednesday was awesome because I didn't have to deal with 5 days of running full field suicides or whatever we did all the time, and doing all that. But I think it's a huge opportunity. But I also think when you look at this, so I try to look at everything because we're in a non-traditional area, right? So all of us down here try to look at things for the growth of the game, right? So I think the season needs to start later because it's just not feasible to start this early, as we learned this weekend, and if we're going to attract people to this sport, when's the best lacrosse played? April and May. That's when crowds come out. Like my son 2 years ago, Grant, he graduated from UMass, right? So they started in February, and I loved UMass. It was a great place for him. But the games in February, I wouldn't even let my wife go. She was not capable of being successful in that environment.
Right.
It just I'd have her bundled up like the little kid in Christmas vacation, the 24 Hours of Christmas movie. I'm losing it, but the little kids that are bundled up like this going out. That's how I'd have to have my wife. But if you look at Amherst, which Garber Field's one of the great places to play, there'd be like 400 people at a February game. In April, we got like 4,000. Because that's when people want to come out and see the sport. And if we don't put the sport in its best light, which is in shorts and warm weather in the spring, we're not attracting more people to the sport. You know what I mean? I mean, they played a game one time, second or third week in February against LIU and 3 inches of snow. And I love Greg Cannella to death, but they just won't go indoors, period. They have an indoor. They won't use it. But literally, like, they're passing and snow's coming out of the...
Right.
I remember the LIU goalie, the guy who went to Syracuse, ended up transferring to Syracuse. He couldn't even pass, and this is like an All-American goalie. He couldn't even make a pass because of the weather. I just think if we want to showcase our sport and truly grow the game, we need to put it in its best environment. And whether they go back to when we played to playing all the games in March or April, or extend the schedule past Memorial Day, which every other sport does. I don't see why that's a problem, but I think we got to do something.
Vin, what do you think about this? What's your Hofstra, your dear Hofstra program? They got a win, which is great, but they went out in 29-degree weather to go play up at Iona. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, listen, obviously, there were T-shirts made about it years ago. The spring thing. Everybody called it the spring thing. It's a spring sport, but unfortunately, the clock got turned back on it, and earlier, and this year may be unusual for snow at least. But there's been a lot of very cold weather games, and it is being discussed now because it's happened more frequently. I did see, I apologize, I don't remember the guy's name, but he has kind of a podcast or whatever, but I caught him on Instagram, and he was making the point. He said that Paul Carcaterra, you talked about going and playing in warm places. He had a vision of, where you would actually play like a triple header at a place. 6 teams go down and they can all get their game in, stuff like that. Other than going to warmer locations that are outside of the schools that are playing, the only other way I guess you can do it is to schedule with teams that are down south more, whether the ACC schools or any of them. Historically, the Ivies start a little bit later, don't they? I mean, I don't think they're usually the latest start of the colleges. But, there have been games that have been moved inside. A lot of these schools do now have indoor facilities. But, I mean, like Jason said, I always liked playing Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday. I did. I liked that midweek game, especially because I was at Hofstra, and it was a Wednesday night game on the turf at Hofstra was just a great, kind of gave us an advantage at home. We were very tough to beat on those Wednesday nights. But
well, that was horrible turf.
That's why.
I just want to say
that's why the coaches don't want to do it,
true.
because they don't mind if they're home. It's when they have to go away on that midweek game, that catch game, especially if it's against a pretty good opponent. That they don't want to get caught.
Yeah, it throws things off, the travel and all of that. Yes, but like Jason said, either you're going to extend the season. I mean, look. It's the sport. Division I playoffs have go back to what, like 72 or 73 was the first time they actually had playoffs, and yet it's still a work in progress, 50 years later, and we got a work in progress, So I think that people got to stay open-minded to different things. I know the Memorial Day weekend became a traditional type thing, and it has its special value, but at the end of the day, to extend it a little further, because it used to go into June. I mean, with the playoffs, even when there was only 8 teams, it used to go into June, the playoffs.
Really, I didn't know that.
I don't. Yeah, no. Some of those championships games were played into June years ago, and so I mean, look, I think as long as the powers to be stay open-minded. There are so many considerations: scheduling, travel expense, school ending, all these things. It's like, but I just think you have to have the conversation and stay open-minded and do what's best for the game and the fans and the growth of the game.
Yeah, my thoughts on this is that, the season, January and February are for being in your full sweats, bonding with your team, working out, figuring things out, so that you're excited to start playing those March games. And even those March games are a little uncomfortable. When we were playing in March, it was kind of cold at first, and you're a little, but and you did go out and practice, but you weren't asked to play games that ultimately could be important in 29-degree weather. Or moved into a field that doesn't even have the correct lines on it. Like Delaware played this week on a field. Granted, both coaches agreed. Nobody's taking anything away from Utah or anything of that nature. But you're on one of these weird fields. It's almost has a feel like when you're in Lake Placid or Florida, and they're like, "You guys go play on that field with the, with the baseball field running through it," or and you're like, "I don't want to play on that field. I want to be on the turf, or I want to be on," It just seems like the games start to become more important. And then, with all due respect to all of our friends that are great coaches, they're tremendous minds in lacrosse and all of that. You're not adding that much with your 2 extra practices. The one game that you play on Wednesday, you're not making that much of a difference with a game plan that somehow you're going to manage to flip these potential losses into wins, in that. Let the kids play and they want to play the games. And honestly, selfishly, I wish we could be watching from December great lacrosse. But the other impacts Eamon McEnany told us one day, the other thing is you're in basketball season right now. So fighting, you're not getting the greatest TV exposure with ESPN,
Nope.
etc., because you're dealing with basketball. If you were to push past Memorial Day and maybe go a bit into June, you're going to get better TV coverage because you're not competing with maybe you're competing with baseball and the softball, but you're not going to win against basketball. So there's those things, the considerations for the fans. Sitting in this weather, you're not going to bring fans out. So
Nope.
These are hard conversations that great minds at the NCAA and the coaches have to really wrap their heads around. But I don't think they should be stuck. Like Vinny said, these things evolve. And look at football. They never went off January 1st. And they didn't have a playoff. They just had the bowls. And then they came up with the college football computer, and they tinkered around, and they expanded. And now they're at like January 20th for the national championship football game. So they evolved. They've evolved, and they figure, and I'm sure they'll tinker around with it more. I think lacrosse has to do that. I don't think they can stick themselves in Memorial Day and just think we have to compress ourselves either into this or go playing and figure all of these other alternatives.
I agree. Look at what baseball has turned into with the College World Series. They have no competition. It's a massive spectacle out in Omaha, Nebraska. It's a huge thing. And I've heard a lot of college coaches say about keeping kids on campus, but baseball, softball, and everybody else is doing it. They're students at school too. So when you're not talking about by the time you're that late in the season, you're not even talking about that many teams.
Right.
You might be talking about 6 to 8 teams. But something's got to be done.
Vin, do you think with these, the Southern strategies, is this like, do they have that big of an advantage, you think, over the Northern teams? Do you think it plays in the overall season that, the Virginias, the Dukes, and the Jacksonvilles, and maybe some other teams that are emerging have strategic advantages to the Northern teams?
I don't know. Listen, the more you could be outside playing in good weather, I think that helps. Yeah, but look, you got Cusa's got the dome, right? So they don't have any problems at all because they got the dome. But very few other teams have an ability to do what they do. They got an indoor facility for practices, a great indoor facility for practices, and a great indoor facility for games, right? So, and who the heck wants to go up early in the year to play Syracuse, other than you're going to be able to play inside? But usually it's a tough game if you're playing in the dome. You're not coming out of there with a W, So, but I think, I think Penn State has an indoor facility. Marquette has an indoor facility. There are more and more of these schools having these indoor facilities. And if they do, I think they need to utilize them, And like we said before, like Clark's idea of either going to warm weather places, or if you're going to go to one of these schools, line up a double or triple header. Invite schools to come play there because you have the facilities, But the idea of like what Jason's doing with what he's doing with his group to bring games down to Atlanta, the ability to while if you're going to start this early and say, well, let's not play in cold weather and go to these warm weather places, it'll grow the game. It'll put more eyes on the game, So that's a plus, I think, I think it all should be considered. But again, like anything else, it always comes down to how you're funding it. These schools are looking at it and like, how much is it going to cost us?
Mm-hmm. The one thing about the having to move games inside, and you mentioned some of these fields, and we know Notre Dame has a thing, and Penn State has one, and I watched a little bit of the Army, but even Army, right? They went inside. They're like on the sideline there. First of all, there's no fans. You can't have any fans because there's no space to put any fans. So there's the downside of that. Then even on the sideline, it's like I actually think if you just take a yard or two width-wise, it's probably not as harmful as taking space and 10 yards out of the middle of the field. Do you think that compromises does it compromise the game, even if the coaches are willing to agree that you're playing on this sort of non-regulation field? Should it matter that much?
I talked with the Army folks last week a little bit. I talked to them a lot, their operations people, because of what we're doing. So when they had to move that game indoors, you know, a normal lacrosse field is 60 yards wide. They had to go to a football lines at the Army facility, and that's 53 and a half. So does that, for guys like me on defense, I like that matchup. But, you know, for the guys who want to run away from people like me, it does change the game. I mean, you're taking 7 yards off the width of the field. That changes the game, you know. So
I just don't think it takes, for me, I don't think the width part doesn't really affect, I don't think, that maybe in the clearing and the riding game a little bit more, but the 10 yards out of a middle would be a problem. You know, and whether or not you're cutting yards, because that Delaware field, I'd love to know. You know, I think it was pretty regular behind the goal. Now looking at it, because I saw where the soccer lines are, assuming that soccer line was exactly what a regulation soccer would be. Mm-hmm. You know, sometimes the other place where people try to steal yards and shorten the field is like behind the goal. So I know attackmen wouldn't want to, you know, I'm sure as a defenseman you can close out closer and things like that. But I think the middle of the field, when that middle of the field is short, you know, I just, you know, when's enough? When does a coach have to say, well, we don't want to, you know, we don't want to play on that field because, you know, it's really a disadvantage, or, you know.
It's funny with the Delaware thing. I didn't really look into it yet, but you know, we have our own indoor. The old field house is converted indoor, but it's only 80 yards indoors. It's good for practice, but you can't do everything on it, right? So they moved to an indoor in Wilmington, which I've seen the building. I've never been in it. I don't know how big it is or what they did it, but it was done in a day. It was rushed, right? So they did whatever they could to take care of that scenario. And, you know, I just don't think it's a good look for the game. I mean, if you can't have fans there, like, you know, Army parents couldn't go to that game last week, you know, and, if you can't have fans there, you're not growing the sport.
I agree. That's a great point.
Yep. But I don't know. No one's listening. No one's calling us for these to make these decisions.
Oh, they will. They will. Because listen, it's getting talked about now. You know, it's not like, you know, you when you just look at straight history weather charts, you know, you might have gotten lucky the last 2 or 3 years. Maybe February was fairly mild with the snow, and then we got blitzed this year. So you know, and it's frigid. So generally speaking, you're not going to have 50-degree weather for the whole month of February or in late January. It's just not going to happen. So you have to decide, like, lacrosse is lacrosse to be played really in that kind of weather. And I don't think I don't think it's just I know I wouldn't want to. I'd much rather play the 2 games a week starting in March and deal with March's weather, you know, and hope for the best than you know, rather train and get ready for the season.
Well, in our area, there's actually a secondary problem with this. So school gets out high school and kids are out by Memorial Day here. So they got to have spring sports over by the start of May for spring football, because all the schools have spring football here. So right now, lacrosse started 2 weeks ago in Georgia, okay? So I think this is a major problem. I think we should be starting youth leagues in March, because what's happening is you can no longer play basketball and lacrosse where we are. You can no longer do it. You know, you can't play if you're in high school. Like when I used to coach at Lambert, we had a couple guys who still tried it. They'd missed the first month of the season because of basketball. So basketball starts in October, ends in end of February or March. Lacrosse now has been 2 weeks into practice here. They start games maybe next week, and they'll be done. The regular season will be done by the end of April. But it's just too soon. It's like we're missing attracting these kids, you know, to the sport. Because, I mean, literally, like basketball, in my opinion, in my experience, basketball is the best sport to transition lacrosse players to. Like, I can take a basketball kid in 5th or 6th grade and teach him lacrosse really quick. But those kids aren't coming into the sport right now because even in the youth leagues, it's now backed up too early. I think that's a major problem, actually, there.
Yeah.
Well, Vinny,
to go back to what you said, Stephen, about what to go back to what you asked about, playing in warm weather places, if they're like Clark's vision of maybe having teams. The other part of that is, if it's early, the travel is
Yeah,
could be a problem if it snows. Let's say you got to fly somewhere or you got to
Hmm.
take a bus. The weather alone
right,
that's inhibiting you from playing at your regular place might inhibit you from getting to the place.
right.
So
That's
there's
true
a
too.
lot to think about with the whole thing. I just think that if you just pushed it, back to where it used to be in mid-March, you want to start mid-March, you take your chances from mid-March. Because if you're playing, first week of February, late January, first week of February, you're really, flirting with disaster for what happened. This was, I guess, the worst I ever heard it in terms of cancellations and stuff. Used to hear a
Hmm.
cancellation of a game every now and then, but this was multiple cancellations all over at every division, I'm sure.
I mean, the Richmond Maryland game got canceled. Like that could have been the best game of last weekend.
Right.
I mean, that's a fantastic game,
Exactly.
Yeah,
right? So I don't know.
yeah.
I know some Richmond parents, they don't know if it's going to be rescheduled. But I could tell you, if you told me a year ago, I'd say you're playing on January 31st. Ouch.
And the other
You
thing
know.
about these teams,
Yeah.
and traditionally speaking, I said if I was negotiating my NIL deal right now, I'd have Peter Schaefer negotiating me anything under 50 degrees. I'm allowed to play in sweats no matter what. I don't care. I hate to play if I was cold. I'd much rather play with sweatpants and be warm, even if you felt a little different running. You know. I mean, these kids are out there. I watched a little bit of that Hofstra Iona game. The checks you're taking a check is just different.
Hmm.
You know when it's 29 degrees. It's just totally different kind of game. The stick handling and all of that. They actually played a very. It actually looked very nice, considering how cold it was. But they're definitely, this is probably going to be one of the conversations until that sun breaks and that spring breaks. I'm sure we're going to be hearing about this. I hope we don't get many more cancellations, because postponing is one thing, but fully canceling a game, that stinks.
Well, my main concern right now is 70 degrees and sunny on February 21st in Atlanta, so we can continue to prove that this is the direction we
There
need to
you
go. Because
go.
occasionally we get some wonky weather like we did this week. I think we got it out of our shoes, but I need it. We need a big turnout. 70-degree and sunny, sun's out. Everyone wants to come out. We have thousands of people, and we can keep doing this. So it's really fun to do this. But yeah, one of these days we're gonna get nailed with weather too, because we get a lot of rain here. I don't know about the ladies of Long Island, but I know the ladies of Long Island, ladies of Atlanta, do not leave the house when it's raining.
Right,
So
right.
one of these, we've been blessed with weather too. So
Well,
Let me
we're
ask
gonna.
you, does Morehouse, do they have a lacrosse program?
they have a
Club
club, but
team
right
or
now they're
anything?
making plans to start one. We're actually going to help them a little bit do that. They're making plans to start a program. So that's one of the reasons they
Nice.
wanted to have us. As a matter of fact, when I first called them about this, they asked me why I wanted to do this there. Um, it's an African American part of Atlanta where it's in, and it's not far from down. It's literally like half a mile from the Mercedes-Benz Dome where the Falcons play. But it's just a different part of town, and it's a nice part of town, but it's just a different part of town. And they asked me, why do you want to be here? And I said, well, honestly, we're all about growing the game, and what better place to grow the game than a Morehouse, which is so big in the history of Atlanta. And they're like, well, that's what we wanted to hear, because they said, because we want more people like us playing lacrosse. So we've already
Right.
had discussions with them about how we're going to best start this program. I was on they put me on a call last week. Their conference is the SAIC, the Southern Intercollegiate Athletic Conference, and I was on a call. They put me on the call with the commissioner of the conference last week, and he's going to come to our event because they want to add 3 other teams in their conference so they can add as a conference sport. So that's pretty
Wow, that'd
cool
be
to
great.
have a small part of that. Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's they want to do that, and it's a growth market, for the game, and all sorts of stuff. But it's just really cool to have be able to do this, and this wouldn't happen without. We got a lot of good sponsors. Guys. There's a lot of lacrosse guys that we have on here that are own their own companies that are contributing to help this happen because it's really expensive. There he is.
Oh,
there he is.
Look who's
who's
chiming in.
emerged.
Oh, God, here he is. Whoa, look at this guy.
Smallsy.
Look at this.
I have no idea what's going on and no clue how I even got on with my phone. Not a clue. Absolutely not. I just probably pressed the button.
As we look in his, he's outside now. It's freezing out.
I don't care. I have no idea how I got on. I swear to God. No idea.
He's like a polar bear. Well, we have
You're
Jason
outside.
on.
You
You
don't
want to
even
say
have a
hello to
phone on.
Jason?
Smallsy, how are you, buddy?
How are you? How's everything?
Excellent. I'm here talking to the legends about growing the game a little bit and playing in the winter. How are you?
Good. Excellent, man. How do I get on? Am I actually on?
You're on.
We're looking at you.
You're in.
We're looking at you.
You didn't accept me, though, before.
I accepted you.
Okay, I was trying to get on. All right. All good, guys.
So Smalls, you
Yeah.
know, they're putting on this big event. You got your friend Joe Alberici. He's going to be playing in that game. Army
awesome,
down
man.
on February 21st down in Atlanta. It's exciting. You missed
I
one.
learned the greatest thing in lacrosse. I learned the best thing since I've been going to the game for 50 years.
What was that?
Be good to people. Be good. He has the greatest quote. Be good to people that don't have what you have.
Well, he's a class guy. We know that.
Now, that was his quote at a camp. I'll never forget it. And the
Who
kids,
said that? Who said that?
Alberici has a quote. It's the most famous quote.
Oh.
I'm giving it right now in the sport. He was talking to kids. I know it's funny. Can I get it out before I forget it? So he's talking to about 1,000 kids. Here they go.
Vin, can you imagine we're looking in his ear
your
hole?
ear.
Can I finish?
You better get a
In your
Q-tip.
ear. I don't know.
You better get a Q-tip. You got to get some hydrogen peroxide or something. I mean,
Oh, look at this guy.
you got potatoes growing out of there. What's going on there?
Oh, my
I
God.
had an ear infection.
Oh, my God.
I had an ear infection. Jesus Christ almighty. Oh, these guys are killing me. They never give up.
I know
These
the
guys
point
go
you're
all day
making
long.
about Joe. Joe is a
No,
quality
it's
guy.
not your
I thought
point.
you were
You're
gonna
not
say-
listening.
I thought you were quoting Ralph Cramden. I thought you were going to say, be kind to the people on the way up because they're the same ones you're going to meet on the way down.
Right.
You're funny, you guys. No, but he was, on a serious note, he was running a camp, and it was a big camp, all diversity kids in the camp, ages from 5 to about 12, like that. And he just was speaking from the heart, and it was just a moment of time. And some of the things he said, and two of them that I remember to this day, and are so great in the sport: be good to people that don't look like you, and be good to people that don't have what you have. I'll never forget it. I'll just and you can hear a pin drop with the parents on the sideline and the kids. It's unbelievable. I'll try to find it one day and show you guys. It really is. And that's my first.
Smalls, you got a question for Jason about Atlanta Lacrosse and this game or anything else about Placid or anything?
Yeah.
The moment now.
Yeah, I got the. Let me ask you a question. How about bringing the housewives from Atlanta into the sport, getting them down there?
Well, that's the goal. We just got to have the right conditions. But yeah, totally. We're trying to get one of the reasons I moved here was for Southern women. So we want to encourage them. We want to encourage them to visit all the lacrosse events we can.
Didn't you marry a girl that was Miss America? Was that you? Somebody was telling.
She's not Miss America, but she could have been. She could have been. I'm way over my skis, Smalls. Just like you.
Oh, right.
I met your wife.
Yeah.
I met your wife. You should say wake up every morning and say thank you.
Two
Yeah,
guys.
you married up, right?
Their coverage.
What the heck are we looking at? It's like I'm watching the Elephant Man.
Oh, my God.
That's hysterical.
So the big controversy, I
What is
guess,
going on with this guy? Look at him. Look at him. What is that?
the big controversy.
Oh, God. Oh God.
The big controversy is you guys talked about playing. The
Yeah,
coaches don't want to play during the week. That's the
yeah.
bottom line.
Well, they're gonna
We
have
did
to
all that.
think about
We
it.
went through
We
all
did
of it.
all of that. We did do it. You could give your thoughts on it, but I think they're gonna have to very much consider it.
I mean, it's so cold. I mean, this weather's it's crazy, man, to play in this weather. It really is. So.
I can't get over the video.
The Elephant
Poor
Man.
Jason, he
He
don't
is
know
the
what to
Elephant
think.
Man.
Jason doesn't.
Oh, this is perfect. This is exactly what I hoped for today.
Jason, I gotta
This
send
is
the
perfect.
Bible. Oh my God, my life. I don't
I'm not an
understand it. I really
animal.
don't. There's a big game going on next week, and I think it'll tell a tale of who. It's going to be Maryland. They're traveling to Cuse next Friday night at the Dome at 6 o'clock. That'll tell a big picture of where they stand. I think in the beginning of the season, anyway, because that might be your final two teams.
You guys should drive up for there and do the podcast at the Dome.
That's not a bad idea. Now, last minute,
No,
let me ask you a question.
I'm
How
fine.
well do you know these two Sombrado brothers? Which one is last minute Charlie?
I don't know,
Well, Vinny's
but
last
I have
minute
a feeling
Charlie.
if you guys packed the car on Friday morning to drive to Syracuse, I'd have a feeling they'd be waiting for you.
Hey, do you know Tillman well?
Yes,
Like, would you say you're the closest to Tillman now?
I know him I know him well. Yes, yes.
Please
But
tell him I felt terrible. I think he doesn't like me anymore because,
Oh, would you stop?
yeah, well,
oh,
You can't help
Smallsy, he
yourself.
loves you.
I don't know about
All right.
now.
Oh,
So
I think
So
he's using a
Smalls.
microscope. What are you using?
I don't know what's going on. It's like literally, it's like seeing something in a petri dish.
Oh my God!
I'm getting
Guys,
dizzy.
move on.
I'm getting dizzy.
Oh
Well,
my
one of the
Lord!
things Jason, I could say this. One of the things Jason was involved, especially up at John's house, and with the shoe and with Pat and all the guys. That night in the summer when we have dinner in that house is one of the best nights of the whole year.
Legendary.
I mean, every year it seems to get better.
A lot of
It's
fun.
a lot of love, a lot of friendship, new friendships. It's just surrounded by lacrosse. I always look forward to that. That's what brings me back up to Lake Placid year after year.
Oh, that's the best.
It's nights
I won't.
like that.
I won't miss that event. Period.
know,
We know where I am.
It's and that could be hot news because the rumor is that the shoe is moving up. They're moving. They're making the shift to the next division.
We're going to 55 plus.
That's what I'm hearing. I wouldn't be opposed to it. It's
Vinny,
Well,
you
I mean,
co- Vinny-
playing with those against those young 50 and 51-year-olds last year was a little. That is a big difference.
yeah.
That's unbelievable. Yeah, yeah. Means a lot. 5 years, it really does. Couple years means a lot. You know,
Without
Vinny, it's the first year you hadn't played in 44 years, right?
No, I didn't play in
Vinny,
Placid last 2 years ago. Yeah, I didn't play in Placid either. Yeah.
No, I didn't ask you. I
Those
said
must
the
come
first
to an
year.
end, Smalls.
I didn't even ask you that either. I said, is it the first year? Is the first year you hadn't played is in Florida, right? You played every year.
No, I didn't play 2 years ago. I don't think I played in Florida. When we saw Cookie, remember when we saw Cookie that time? When Cookie came in the golf cart, Cookie Krongard,
Cookie,
and we
yeah,
saw.
yeah.
I don't think I played that year. Yeah.
No, that's
I'm
Florida.
on and off, depending on
Placid.
how my niece.
He's talking about Placid.
No, he was asking about Florida.
Oh,
Yeah, Florida.
But all
Tell me
right.
something about Atlanta. Are the people coming out to play in Atlanta? Are they getting grassrooting a lot more kids now than ever before?
You'd be surprised how popular
Well,
lacrosse is here. Actually, USA or Inside Lacrosse actually told me Atlanta is now the number 5 lacrosse market in the country. You
That's
know, there's like
incredible.
120 schools, high schools playing it now, mostly in Metro Atlanta, but it's
Wow.
even now, it's even taken off down in Savannah. There's like 8 or 9 schools that play down in Savannah now, which is pretty cool. But it's taken off pretty well, and you know, there's about 9 or 10 high school programs here who are better than you think. I mean, they're not beating Chaminade, but they're competitive. You know, a couple of them. You know,
Yeah.
but you know, it's pretty cool. So it's a pretty, you know, there's probably, they estimate 15 to 20,000 kids playing youth lacrosse now here.
Wow, that's unbelievable. As opposed to what, 3 years ago, maybe half of that, or
No, I'd say maybe 10 years ago, half of that. Like the
wow.
past, you know, it's funny. It's better than you think. But right now there's, you know, if you look at the amount of, I haven't seen the number lately, but there's like in the 3 games we're having this year at our event, there's 13 Atlanta players in them.
That's
So when you
incredible.
combine the men and women, the boys and girls playing college right now, there's well over 100 kids from Atlanta
That's
playing Division
incredible.
One lacrosse right now. You know, so it's it's because of a lot of guys, you know, just pouring their hearts into kids and passing on the game and working hard. Like if you mentioned Zalberti earlier, when Z was alive here. I mean, you can look. A lot of the really good attackmen that came from Atlanta, they all worked with him privately. That was the key, and he put so many hours into some of these kids, like the Solomon brothers, one was at Syracuse, one was at Carolina, and you know, God, I'm drawing a blank here right now. The kid was at Maryland, then Duke, Eric Maliver, you know, all these players were you know, just played like Zalberti did and he put all this time in with them, and it's just a lot better than you think. You know, we produce good face-off guys and good goalies. I think we still have a weakness down here of kids who aren't quite ready for the North unless they have a crazy Northern father like my kids. But, you know, I don't think kids here are quite ready for the cold unless they're prepared for it because it's different. But it's a good brand of lacrosse here. But
So
you
it's
know, we're not beating
growing. Wow.
Chaminade or St. Anthony's, but you know, we're competitive.
Is the women's programs growing as well, or not as much as the men's at this point in
Women's is
Atlanta?
actually better.
Really?
There's a high school here named Milton High School, which has literally
Wow.
been top 10 in the country for about 10 years. Somehow, all the good girls in Atlanta end up at Milton High School, though. So
Right.
somehow that happens through this club they have. They just miraculously end up at Milton High School. But there's probably almost every girls program out there has a girl from Milton on it.
That's
You know,
cool. That's really good.
really good players. So,
Wow.
yep.
And how long you been down there now yourself?
Well, let me see. 30. I graduated from Delaware in 1992, and I moved down here 2 weeks later. So that was our
Wow.
math there. 34 years.
Oh, you did 30? Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Good luck, man.
Yep. And it's, you know, lacrosse is pretty cool now. It's just kind of an honor to grow our game. You know, we were all raised in a time when, you know, people just wanted to play and you know, just kind of, it was what we did with our friends and stuff. I think now some of the stuff, the clubs have been introducing to lacrosse, I don't know if it's all necessarily great for the growth of the sport, you know, because I think the recreational play at the youth levels is kind of going away, which I think is, you know, but I know, you know, one thing, I grew up in Western New York. I'm a child of a couple divorces, you know. We didn't have a whole lot of money. I don't know if when I was in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade and first got my stick, if in today's age, my parents would pay for me to play. You know, we didn't have to pay for anything to play. I don't know what happened. I showed up. Our high schools gave us helmets. I don't know what happened. I just showed up and played. I don't think we had to. I don't know who had to pay for anything. You know, I had to pay for a stick, but that's about it. But you know, but right now I think the cost of lacrosse is a problem. It's a barrier of entry.
Yeah.
You know, and then you know the rec leagues are all been swallowed up by, even down here. We had some great rec leagues for a while, and now they're swallowed up by club teams. You know, and it's
Oh,
just,
you too with the club. Oh, jeez.
And then now you got club teams trying to play in the spring. You know,
Oh, man.
there's always been a really good movement here, mainly led by Richie Wayman from, you know, more Ward Melville Navy guy who I've been working with here for a while, but to make sure the high school season was always the priority, right? But every year there's new people who come down here starting clubs and they want to just kind of dip into the high school season, you know. So
they want to dominate. Yeah, they want to dominate. Yeah.
But you know, it's still the greatest game there is to play.
That's great, man. Yeah.
Yep.
We try to get some kids the affordability to be able to get a stick, and you know.
So
Yeah.
Small, we're at our shout outs. We're gonna wrap it up with our shout outs. We always do our shout outs. We shout out to somebody. You could have a couple if you want. Um, you got a particular shout out?
Today, yeah, I was thinking about actually,
Good to
believe it or
hear.
not, the Tawathon guys that are up for it this year. And then I was thinking back in the day when you had guy like Gary and Paul Gate. I mean, how many times would they have won it? We didn't have one back then. I think it started in 1995 or 97, the Tawathon. But back then, what did they call it, Vinny? Player of the game or something?
Player of the
What,
year?
player of the year, right?
No, they used to
Yeah.
player of the
Yeah.
year. Yeah, player of the year. Yeah.
So my shout out today is the two Gate brothers for what Gary and Paul for what they did. Not only the play that they did, to actually come to America. And I remember when they came, man, there was so much chatter about them. I remember telling everybody, I love saying it too, because getting everybody's skin. There's a new sheriff in town, man, and those were the two boys. And they couldn't be any nicer kids coming here, you know? You think about it. They actually moved from Canada. They were some of the first to even move here and play. I mean, there wasn't that many. I mean, maybe Stan Cockett and a couple other guys, but those guys moved here. I give them a lot of credit to go to a different country and play a sport in college, you know? Now you see a lot of it. So my shout out is to Paul and Gary Great. That's
Great.
it.
I thought it was gonna be to your ears, nose, and throat doctor. I mean,
Oh, you two, listen to me.
God.
You two are going to pay for
Oh
this.
my God.
Hey, listen, thank God I don't call Vinny Jesus.
Oh
I
Lord.
call him Jesus
Yeah.
because he's not God. Vinny, you're not God. We had this discussion, Vinny.
So so I'm gonna make my shout out. My shout out's gonna be to my childhood lifelong friend down in Atlanta, Eugene Araxum. You know,
Is he
hopefully,
still down here?
yeah, he's down there. So
Can you give him my phone number? I want him to come to the games as our guest. I want to meet him.
for sure,
Yeah.
I'm gonna let him know. I'm sure he wouldn't want to miss that. That's gonna be a great game. Tremendous teams, tremendous event. You know. So
How about next year you guys come down as our guest and we do a live podcast from the field wherever we have this. You'll be our guest.
Oh, my God. That'll be a class.
Oh, that
And
would be
Smallsy,
awesome.
you have to come. You got it. You're gonna have to go over a bridge to get to the airport, though.
Oh, you even know about it. That killed me. The bridges killed me. The bridges killed me. Oh, my God. It's amazing. I couldn't
You
even
could
watch
take a
that guy.
boat, but that would be long.
I couldn't watch that guy climb that building last week in China. He climbed with no ropes all the way up a building. He
I
scaled
told
it.
you to watch that.
I couldn't believe you were. That was unbelievable.
That's insane. Who do you got, Vin?
He
My
went out.
shout
His
out
plug went
goes
out.
to all the parents and fans that braved this cold weather to go watch these games. Anybody who traveled to and was able to go see some of these early season games, you're real diehards, and I give you a shout out and I give you a lot of credit for showing up to support your team. Oh, Smalley, this is killing me.
Great.
This view.
All right, Jason, your show. Who you got as your shout
I
out?
think I just saw
Honestly-
I think I just saw a hippopotamus. I think I just saw a hippopotamus.
I just real quick, you know what I want to shout out is our Sailing Shoe team, because that's what lacrosse is about. You know, we get together every year. It's relationships in the sport, and here we are. We're all in our 50s. You know, getting together, still playing like a bunch of crazy guys, but we all do it because of the brotherhood this sports creates.
Yeah, that's
So
nice.
everyone on our Sailing Shoe program, and I'm very fortunate. 5 years ago, I got the invite to come, and love every minute of it, and can't wait till this year, no matter what division we're playing in.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Well, we're going to sign off for everybody to know again. February 21st, festivities. You got a great men's college game, and you got women's college games as well. It's going to be a great event down in Atlanta. Find the website 285 Lacrosse Atlanta Invitational, and get your tickets. because they're going to fill up that Morehouse Stadium. And, you're going to want to be one of those 10,000 people that get a chance to see these games. Thanks again, Jason. We really appreciate all the insight. Couldn't have you had you had a better time considering all the scheduling and the weather and all of what went on, because it really ties in. The destination games ties into everything that's going on right now. Potential solution, amongst many, of which we talked about today, and I think the powers that be really have to listen to some of those ideas that us and many others have come up with, because we want the game to grow, and it doesn't grow if fans aren't watching, and it'll only grow a little bit on the streaming stuff. You got to get people to watch a game in person, and that's what it's really about. So they're going to have to really make the efforts to do it, and the coaches will have to be involved in that as well. So look for our picks. We'll get this up on Spotify and YouTube. If you're not following, you're going to want to follow so you get the notifications of when something hits. We put our picks up this week. We'll get some picks up there so guys can pick the games. Smalley and me are in a slight lead over Vin, but it's early because of all the cancellations. And
I like to wish Vinny some good luck, because he hasn't won in years, right? I won 1 year, you won 1 year.
That's right.
Vinny's 0-3.
Yeah, he's gonna have to. He's gonna need some more.
The only thing that's growing are the hairs in my ears.
What do I know
Not Vinny.
Unfortunately, we know that.
So we'll hit it with some music, and we'll
Exactly.
give us a little music going out.
Say hello to Paul, Jason.
Here it is. Yeah, good luck, Vinny. I had a hurry run to Hoptown.
Let's want a little music. All right, we're back. 3 Guys, Many Games. We're going to pop an episode on. We had a great conversation, and I think you're really going to enjoy it, having to do with the scheduling, etc. But, Smalls, we were talking about it a little bit. Right now, you're 1-1, I'm 1-1, and Vinny's 0-2, and the fans are 0-2. What do you think?
Are we on live?
Yeah.
All right, so what do you want me to pick? What game?
Well, I'll give you a game. This weekend right now, there's a game up right now that's Duke and Utah is coming on Friday. And Duke is a 6-goal favorite over Utah. That's a game that's up there.
I'm going to pick Utah.
Wow.
Yeah, I'll go with Utah.
That's an interesting pick. I think I'm going to go with Duke. I think at home, starting the year.
I'm also with Duke.
Oh, we got some other games too.
Also,
you're going with Duke? Okay. Let's see. All right. How about this one? You ready?
Yeah.
This is a Friday game also. This is Delaware at Drexel. Delaware is -1.5.
So they're favored by 1.5.
Yeah.
I'm still going to go with Delaware.
well, they've played one game already. They got one under their belt. They got beat, but that could be a good game. I'm going to take Drexel.
You're going to take Drexel? I'm gonna go Delaware. I'm gonna say after that game they got a bad taste in their mouth. They're gonna have to come out strong. All right, let's see. I don't like to do the particular ones with a very high. Oh, this is a good one. We're definitely doing this one. Johns Hopkins at Georgetown. 2.5.
Who's favored?
Georgetown's favored 2.5.
Georgetown's favorite, right?
Yeah. Ooh, that's a tough one.
I'm gonna go Hopkins.
Wow. Okay. I'm gonna go Georgetown.
I'll go Georgetown also.
Wow, that's a tough one. Let's see. Oh, this was another good one. This is an early season. Penn State -5, Villanova. It's at Penn State. I wonder if they'll play inside or outside.
I tell you,
I bet
the
you they
uh,
might play inside again.
the goalie situation over at Penn State has to improve a little bit. I would think.
I'm
Um,
taking Villanova plus the 5.
you know what? I like the scoring over there. I'm going to say they win by. That means they're going to win by 6. Yikes, that's a lot. I'm going to go with Penn State. I'll go with Penn State. Really?
I'm gonna go with Nova. I go Nova.
Yeah. All right. I think that's
Gotta tell
all
you
of them.
this.
They got some other games, but they're such high spreads. I don't like normally.
So we're picking games that are more local now, or we're not.
Well, the ones we don't know, we don't have the numbers on any New York teams.
We can kind of figure it out. Somebody can tell us.
Shave a little.
You know.
You got to shave, Smalls.
We'll
All
wait.
right, I
We'll
will. Don't
wait.
worry
No
about
more
saving.
pause.
We'll.
He's scaring me. I
Really?
think this is Buffalo Bill Part 2. I don't know what's going on in that place where he is.
Hold on a second. Are you guys?
Play the
Hey, last thing
music,
to tell
Steven.
you,
Play the music.
Yeah. He really is itching to go up to Syracuse, though, Vin.
no, Vinny.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
know.
want you.
We
I
might
don't
have
want
to
to talk.
die.
Vinny. I know something you don't know.
What's that?
I don't want to talk about it online. I'll tell you
Okay.
offline
All right.
because
All right.
I think you guys should go. There's a reason why you guys won't know, but I'll tell you
All
off the
right.
air.
Well,
You know.
that's in the works. Us getting up to Syracuse for the big game,
But ask
Syracuse and
Vinny for some
Maryland.
commitment. Does Vinny? Can Vinny have any? What the
You
hell's
got to.
going on?
Oh, yeah, there it is. There he is, Buffalo Bob. Oh God. Oh God.
Oh, that's
That's
it. Oh, God.
We just frightened half the audience away.
Vinny,
With
you can't find it.
The
I
hippopotamus.
got.
I can't even talk.
Oh,
The
God.
fans,
You
Vinny, the
kill
fans
me.
don't know what's going
You
on.
kill me.
Oh my God.
This guy kills me.
Beautiful, beautiful. All right.
Hey,
Well,
Steven.
we're gonna get to our guest, Jason Braille. I'm gonna put this in order. I'm gonna put the first thing before the second thing.
Oh God.
So Smalley will have to be back. All right, look for the stories. I'm gonna put the stories
Hold
up
on,
each
Steven.
day
Hold on a
for the
second.
fans
I'm
to
in the middle.
pick.
I'm in the middle
Huh?
of talking, but I'm laughing because this guy won't stop. Hold on, Vinny. Vinny,
Yes,
we
I'm
need
listening.
a little commitment out of you. Something to. Can you do next Friday? He doesn't-
I'll know
Give
by
him
tonight.
Can you give
I'll
us?
let you know by
No,
tonight. That's
I
a
didn't
lot
say
of
give it.
advance warning for me.
We'll see. You got the we'll see. We'll see. Look at that.
Vinny,
The
you too.
hippopotamus. The hippopotamus is the greatest of all
Last
time.
minute, Charlie.
Oh my
That's too
God.
much advance notice for Vinny.
Oh my God.
No, Vinny, because Vinny, they're doing a thing up there. I'm trying to explain to you what's going on. You're not listening. There's a thing going on. I'll tell you off the air, you guys. All right? So
Okay,
All right.
good.
Well, we
All
got to
right.
get off because your ear.
All
We
right.
can't. The fans
Wrap it
are
up.
only going to take so much of your ears. All right. On to our other
All
guest.
right, Steven.